Hello and welcome to the New England Job Show, a show produced by job seekers for job seekers. On today's show, we're going to delve into the topic of the underground economy, a fairly self-explanatory title. We have a guest presenter today, Susan Kennedy, and she will speak to her guests on the implications of the underground economy for all of us, in fact. Over to you, Susan.
Today we're going to discuss the underground economy, and we have with us George Noel, who is the director of the Department of Labor and also the chair of the Joint Task Force on the Underground Economy, and also Laura Marlin, who is the Commissioner of Occupational Safety. The topic is the underground economy. Could you tell us exactly what the underground economy is?
Well, the underground economy essentially is made up of individuals and businesses that willfully avoid labor, licensing, and tax laws to disguise the true nature of their business. A lot of people know it as dealing in cash or off the books. And what it is it puts those businesses at a distinct advantage over their counterparts who operate above board and legally.
So what is new about the Joint Task Force on the Underground Economy?
Well, what's new about it is that government has always had a role in enforcing labor, licensing, and tax laws. A good example is Laura's Division of Occupational Safety. She licenses temporary agencies and asbestos and lead abatement. The Attorney General's office, they enforce wage and hour laws, minimum wage, overtime, things of that nature. And as we all know, the Department of Revenue, they collect taxes. What's different about this joint task force is all these agencies before was basically operating in their own silos. No one talked to each other. And this is something that was unique to Governor Patrick when he came in. He wanted to break down the silos across all agencies, have people work together as a team. And this joint task force is a great example of how that takes place. The governor signed this executive order that created this task force back in March of 2008. And we had 11 different government agencies across constitutional offices. It's not just the executive office. And it's grown to 17 because we found out, the more players we have on the team, the more effective we are. So it's that's where the meat of this is. It's about, especially in these difficult times that we're living in right now with limited resources. We're all pooling our resources, sharing data, and working together, and it makes this effort much more effective.
Do you find that there are some industries where the underground economy is more prevalent?
Well, the classic case is construction. Everybody thinks of construction. In fact, Harvard and UMass Boston did a study a few years back that found that there's quite a bit of underground economy involved in the construction industry, and hundreds of millions of dollars is lost because of that. But it's not just construction. It goes across all industries. There's one that comes to mind that cosmetology and nail salons is another one. There's a fellow, Frank Zona, that owns hairdressing salons in Braintree, and here's a good example of a good employer, pays his workers correctly, classifies them as employees, pays the unemployment taxes, pays the workers' compensation insurance, fulfills all the obligations that good employees, and I should say most employers do, but he's in competition with employers that doesn't. It does put him at a distinct disadvantage.
Another area that we see misclassification is in the temporary industry. Misclassifies the workers that they place as independent contractors, and my agency licenses and registers employment agencies and temporary agencies. And so, when we see that, when we see an employment agency that goes and refers workers to a job site, but is misclassifying them as an independent contractor, that worker is not an employee of the temporary agency. They're also not an employee of that company where they've been sent to work. So there's, they have confusion as to who they should go to if there's a problem. There are questions as to, are there occupational hazards that they might encounter? Who's going to provide them with personal protective equipment? So in addition to the taxes and unemployment and workers' compensation, sort of the revenue impacts that we think about with respect to the cash economy and the underground economy, there are real impacts on the workers who are placed in this very vulnerable situation.
There are more people who are going to temporary agencies to find work. Do you have advice for those people?
Well, yeah, we do. I mean, first of all temporary agencies need to be registered with the Division of Occupational Safety. And when, once they've completed their application, provided us with all the information that we require, we issue them a certificate. And a lot of the legitimate temporary agencies, which I should say most of them are,
yeah.
A lot of them will display that certificate right up in the office. But if they don't have it displayed, they should have it on file. So the first thing that a worker can do if they go to a temporary agency is ask to see the certificate. Are you a registered temporary agency? Short of that, we also have the list of all the registered temporary agencies right on our website at www.mass.gov/DOS. So they can go right on the website and check to see if the temporary agency that they are going to go sign up with is registered. So that would be the first thing. Second thing is if a worker goes down to a temporary agency and is signing up for work, they need to ask some questions. Who's going to be my employer? How will I be paid? Will I encounter any workplace hazards? What kind of personal protective equipment should I have, and are you going to provide that as the employer? So those are the kinds of questions that informed individuals, when they go down to a temporary agency, can ask and reasonably should ask.
Is it reasonable for somebody to ask for copies of their signed contracts and so forth with the agency or with the employer?
Certainly, if they're going to sign something, they certainly should be entitled to a copy of what it is that they've signed. Additionally, if you're going to become an employee of a temporary agency, and I should say that in the vast majority of the situations, if you go to work for a temporary agency, you should be an employee. It would be unlikely for a temporary worker to legitimately be an independent contractor. It probably could happen, but it's unlikely because there's a test to decide whether or not someone is a legitimate contractor, independent contractor, and the very first question is that person free from direction or control by the employer? And if you're going out and you're assigned to go work in a company or a factory or some other work site, most likely you're not going to be free from the direction or control of that company. So it's perfectly legitimate to be asking these kinds of questions and to expect to be an employee of the temporary agency, to receive a regular payroll check and all the kinds of things that an employee can expect.
What kinds of things can people do if they find themselves in a situation where they're beginning to get a bad feeling about the direction it's going?
Well, one of the things that they can do is contact the task force, and we can follow up. I mean, that's certainly, there's a toll-free number, which is 877-96-LABOR, I believe. Is that right, George?
That's absolutely correct.
And so I would encourage anyone who feels as though they're being misclassified to go ahead and call the task force and report that, so that the various agencies that are involved can follow up and find out whether, in fact, this is a situation of the underground economy.
Yeah, the way the task force works, if we receive a call of that nature, there's someone that will intake that call. The investigators meet on a regular basis. They compare, the interview that's done with that person who calls in the complaint or has the question. They'll be asked a series of questions, and from those questions we'll be able to ascertain what, if any, violations have taken place and what agency should be involved in the investigation, and then we conduct the investigation going forward from there. But if there's any question, I guess what I want job seekers to know that there are resources available, there is help available. There's a great deal of information on the mass.gov website. There's links to all this from the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development, Secretary Bump's website. Each one of our agencies are linked to that website, including the Joint Task Force on the Underground Economy, and there is a wealth of information there for them to look at, and also numbers for them to call if they feel that somehow they're being their rights are being violated or they're being misused in any fashion.
Who else is besides the employees are affected by the underground economy?
We're all affected. We all suffer. There was a study done a couple of years back that between 4 and 6 million jobs slid into the underground economy. It's some estimates, conservative estimates. We lose 350 billion. That's billion with a B in federal taxes a year because of that, because of the underground economy. And
how is that? How do we lose that?
Uncollected taxes.
Okay.
If someone's being paid in cash, there's no tax withholdings, no Social Security. These employers they rarely pay workers compensation to cover these workers. So if someone's hurt on the job, they still have a right to be to receive replacement wages and also be medically treated. But that comes out of in Massachusetts comes out of a trust fund that all employers pay into.
Right.
So that once again the legitimate employers are subsidizing the people that aren't playing by the rules. Unemployment taxes. We're finding a lot of these people, these employers, they don't pay unemployment taxes. So when someone's laid off, it makes it very difficult for them to collect. So we all suffer. Like I said, I talked about how the government suffers. With lack of revenue that's not collected because of this activity. But the honest businessman, I've heard testimony from businessman after businessman from on congressional committees that I testified before on these. We've held a series of town hall meetings across the Commonwealth, and it's how do we expect these businesses to operate at such a disadvantage? They're playing by the rules. They're withholding taxes. They're paying their employees properly. They're paying the unemployment insurance, the workers' compensation insurance. And then they're in competition with people that aren't. And how do they? It's a very unlevel playing field. And last but not least, the workers, people that are working for those legitimate owners, employers, their wages are depressed. There's pressure to put their wages and benefits down because of that unfair competition. And the exploited worker, who is getting paid in cash or maybe being misclassified as an independent contractor. They get a 1099 instead of a W-2. Well, W-2 means your employer, there's withholding taxes. And so, when you file your taxes at the end of the year, you may get a refund. If you're filing a 1099, you're still expected to pay all those taxes.
Oh, yeah.
So it's, it's, and if, once again, if someone's misclassified as an independent contractor, they get laid off, it's difficult for them to collect unemployment benefits. And once again, like I said, when someone gets hurt on the job, they have to fight for those benefits that they're entitled to under workers' comp. So, and the consumer is faced with unregulated goods and services. There's a couple cases I can think of. There's this young electrician that was working for in the underground economy, working for cash. Knew it was wrong, but it was all the work he could find at the time. But he thought he was getting hours towards his journeyman license, and he was working in these unsafe conditions, getting electrical shocks, being paid, working overtime, not getting compensated for it. But at least he thought he was getting those hours towards his, in his apprenticeship towards his journeyman's license. And at the end of the day, he didn't even get that.
Oh, that's terrible.
The good part of the story, he found Local 7 IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. They took him in on as apprentice, and he's on his way to a career right now.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But those are the types. We've heard countless stories from workers that have been abused and hurt by working in this type of fashion.
this has been really informative. Thank you both so much for coming here today.
Thank you so much for having us.